Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee and Capital. Happy to have you with us this morning. For those of you joining for the first time, I think I do see some new names and faces on here, so welcome. And welcome back to any return attendees. Today, we are joined by Kristen Dickey. Kristen is a private investor who works with female-led businesses. She helps them to build, grow, and scale, serving as a board member and advisor. But she's also a member of New York Angels, which is a angel investing group that finds and funds and mentors young companies from pitches through successful exits. So we'll definitely be hearing from Kristen in just a few minutes to hear more about her work. But as always, we want to hear from you all on the call. So anyone new here, some of you already know the drill. But we're just going to go around this Zoom room and just briefly introduce ourselves. So when I call on your name, if you could just please give your full name, your company, whether that's an actual company or still in the concept stage or an idea, and what stage of funding you're at or whatever else brings you on the call today. Just good way to give us some context for who's in the room and helps Kristen get to know each of you before we hear from you. So how about we hear from Ryan?
Hey, Jake, good morning. Good morning, Kristen. So my name's Ryanushka. Actually, probably a little bit of a different audience than some of the others on the call. So I'm actually a professional advisor. I work at an accounting firm, Baker Tilly. Reason I was probably on the mailing list and I wanted to jump on the call is because we work with a lot of early stage companies, right? And oftentimes, we're looking to make connections within our networks, for companies that we're working with that may be raising capital, and getting them kind of involved in the angel investor ecosystem. Long story short, I'm pretty connected within that Philadelphia ecosystem, but when I saw Kristen was going to be on the call, then she was from New York. We don't have nearly as many connections out that way, so I was interested to hear kind of what Kristen, had to say, and see if there's any companies that we work with that we may be able to connect her with. So good to meet everybody.
Excellent. Thanks for joining, Ryan. All right, next up on my screen, I see Robert.
Hi, yes, Bob Hart, call me Bob, with JP Morgan Private Bank here in Philadelphia. And I'm actually here, I think, for a lot of the same reasons Ryan is. Work very closely with clients who are early stage startups, and JP Morgan has a commercial bank side of the business that's getting more earlier stage financing for companies in technology disruption, especially life sciences, robotics, but trying to get educated on other sources of capital that we may not be able to provide as we continue to be a resource to our clients.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. All right, Wenji.
Hi, good morning. My name is Wenji Wei. I'm a medical scientist from University of Pennsylvania. I'm doing translational research at UPenn. So I have a startup, want to develop some medical products to improve sleep and urinary incontinence and something else. So I come here to looking for some partner and support. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good to see you again. All right, next up, Ricky. Or Ricky?
Yes. Hi, good morning, everybody. Ricky Franco, CEO and founder of Prime 6. We manufacture sustainably made products for the greater good of people and planet. And we started with our innovative charcoal for grilling and barbecue 2 years ago. We recently raised money from Kevin O'Leary. We were on Shark Tank, and our company is growing. And as it is growing and capital is needed to support that growth, and I'm exploring that world of funding, I'm just here and curious about funding for CPG companies and companies that are high growth but do have patent innovation and sustainability as part of their mission.
Excellent. Sounds great. Thank you. Next up on my screen, I see Shintaro.
Good morning, Jake. Good morning, Kristen. Thank you for hosting this session. I'm Shintaro Kobayashi, currently a Vice Provost for Innovation and Executive Director of Drexel Applied Innovation, which is Drexel University's tech transfer unit. And it's always great to get to know investors in the region. So really happy to be on this session. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good to see you. I believe we just had someone else join us. She might be a regular. I don't know if I've ever seen her face before, but Maddie, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to the group.
Yeah, hi, not quite a regular, but I'm Maddie. It's lovely to meet you guys. I moved to New York during the COVID time period, and I'm excited to get to chat.
Good for you. Most people were going the other direction.
You know, that is true. It's true. I'm in food and bev, and so it made sense to come from Silicon Valley SaaS land over to here. So it's been great, but was definitely the commitment.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Maddie. All right, Indrani?
Yeah, sure. Hi, can you see me? Yeah, my name is Indrani Pal. I'm a water scientist. I teach at Columbia University. A couple of years ago, I founded a team of research, a virtual team of researchers that has been working towards creating an automated water data and visualization platform. Currently, we are a part of National Science Foundation's iCorp team. I'm really looking for partners and some support, and I'm here to learn a lot more, a bit more about, a bit more from Kristen today, and also to meet with and it's nice to see other fellow scientists here, which is nice. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, thank you for joining. All right, I saw Christina had joined while we were in the middle of this. So Christina, if you would, we're just going around the room really quick, just introducing ourselves, what your company is, what stage of funding you might be, or whatever else brings you on the call today.
Hi, my name is Christina Blackburn. I'm not on video because I am driving. So my company is Vanguard Medicine. We are a clinical decision support tool and learning management system for emergency medicine doctors who provide direct care to victims of violent crime, and in particular, domestic violence victims. So it's a training and on-demand support for them in the moment while they're caring for victims. We started the process about a year ago, but really formally launched this year, 2021. So last year, I was entered into a poster competition at Mount Sinai Innovation Partners at Mount Sinai in New York City, and essentially pitched for the poster competition, we presented this idea that there was more training needed for doctors and nurses around domestic violence and interventions, and we won the poster competition last year. And then we went on to their pitch competition in May, and this is right in the height of the pandemic, and then we won their pitch competition. So once we won both of their innovation awards last year, and we won about $31,000, and they were like, okay, you obviously have a good idea that the hospital and the medical school can use. So we're going to partner with you to expand this, throughout the United States and essentially globally. So we're still in contracting with them right now. And then we won another pitch competition this year through Mount Sinai, also through their Diversity Innovation Hub that was in April this year. So we won like another $1,000 there. So we haven't done any other fundraising other than winning these competitions. But we do have the MVP created, and it is being used right now at Mount Sinai in their emergency department and with their residents. So that's where we're at, but I'm really looking for how to sell this technology into more health systems, and then trying to figure out if we should be trying to get more venture fund, or I'm just not really sure where to take this next or how to grow it or build it and scale it.
Gotcha. Well, you're in the right place. Thank you, Christina. All right. Well, we do have a few Science Center folks on the line, but in the interest of time, I think I'll just hand things over to Kristen here. So you guys all know it's nothing personal. If you want to come on at any point, introduce yourself, please feel free. So once again, I'd like to introduce Kristen Dickey. Thank you, Kristen, for joining us this morning. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background or anything you're working on currently?
Great. Thank you for having me. As Jay said, I'm Kristen Dickey, and I live in New York. I'm a native New Yorker, so I'm actually from New York. I spent my operating career in financial services, starting at Merrill Lynch, and then spent 22 years at BlackRock. I was one of the earliest employees at BlackRock. So before they started talking about words like unicorn and being disruptive, I was at a firm that today is the largest asset management firm in the world and manages over $9 trillion. I spent my career there doing a variety of things, managing teams all over the world. But it was a unique experience in that it was a highly entrepreneurial, very, go figure out and how to be disruptive kind of place. And all of this vocabulary is very current today. We weren't using that terminology when we were doing it, but it was very much the case. When in 2018, when I began to think about what I wanted to do in my career, I found myself deciding that I had been at BlackRock for 22 years and that I wanted to do something else. I didn't know what that was. At the time, the things that I was most energized about was actually not anything I did in my day job, but more what I did extracurricularly, which was I ran the women's network at BlackRock. And I wanted to figure out how, with everything going on in Wall Street and places, that I could potentially do that on a more full-time basis. And so I did the normal thing. I went and joined a bunch of corporate boards and, was a role model, have a seat at the table, all those kinds of conversations. But to be honest, it wasn't close enough. And I started working with founders, and I started going back to the roots of doing things in the entrepreneurial world. And I started working with women founders. And that led me to build out a family office where now we invest. We have two branches to it. One is we invest in early stage female founded companies, or we invest in professional venture funds where there's a female GP. I find that if you have women at the table, you get to parity of the types of investors very quickly, which is what we're striving for. It doesn't necessarily have to be just investing exclusively in female-led businesses. As Jake said, I'm a member of New York Angels. I'm also a member of a West Coast angel organization called Astia Angels that focus exclusively on women, and they do a lot in the life sciences group in space and biotech. So if you guys are interested in those, that is an area, a team that does do quite a bit in that space. And they are also always looking for geographical diversity. My family office invests largely at the seed stage. We do some Series A. We don't do a tremendous amount in pre-seed. I am still in the apprenticeship of all of this, so I'm not really interested in funding research. I'm interested in funding something that has already had a proof of concept. So that is where I sit. I'm agnostic at this point to industry. I have, to Maddie's point, I have food and bev, I have medical devices, I have gaming, I have fintech, I have all, the gamut. My thesis has always been very much, to use the coined phrase, I bet on the jockey. It's very much about the quality of the founder, how their strategic vision is being thought through, whether or not I think they have the chops to execute. I tend to like teams. I think, one person bands are, that you have to be a pretty exceptional individual to be able to do it alone. So I tend to invest in companies that have co-founders or that have some sort of an architecture where there's a team with complementary and composite skill sets. Like I said, I've been at this for a few years now. New York Angels is a very, very active angel group. On average, we put about between $13 and $15 million to work a year. It's member-led, so everyone syndicates a deal and you determine what you want to be involved in. There is a sizable representation of members who come from life science medical devices. So with just this audience, that is an arena for people doing things in that space. Locally, I am co-invested alongside Robinhood Angels or Robinhood Ventures. They're an angel group in Philly, as well as Broad Street. Those are two local angel groups that they've been in deals that I'm in. And so, I tend to invest in anywhere from half a dozen, probably from 3 to 6 companies a year. I look at hundreds. So, yeah, and I am not sourcing anything particular. Part of the reason I like working with groups like New York Angels is I'm a financial services. I can take apart a model. I can take apart a strategy. I can take apart a personality. But when it comes to doing the diligence on IP or everything technology related, in the life science and medical device world, frankly, I'm over my skis in a major way. So I like deferring to my colleagues and partners for helping me think through the areas that I don't understand and couldn't possibly opine on. And that's one of the things that working with some of these angels groups has been really enriching for me. So that's me. That's what I do. I'm happy to give you my 2 cents on whatever. I'm not entirely sure I can talk about the state of the early stage investing market because it's pretty robust right now. Please, I turn it to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, anyone who has questions, I think we're all pretty comfortable with each other now that we've come on screen and introduced ourselves. So if you do have a question, please ask away. Well, Kristen, I'll get things started at least. You said you tend to like to work with teams. I was wondering if, do you ever help build teams around a single founder and their idea? Is that something you've ever done? And okay.
No, because in many respects, again, going to the, let's put it this way. I'm active with my founders and with companies, and as they grow and scale, troubleshooting and thinking through, additive people and skills and things like that, certainly. But at the go, where at least as you've just described it, I see that more as being an incubating kind of experience, and I don't do that because by definition, I've found that I like things not being pre-revenue. And if you're still figuring out the key people to be part of the team, you're probably pre-revenue too. So that's sort of how I think about it.
Cool, makes sense. Ricky, I see your hand up.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I have a question about your experience funding consumer packaged goods companies, and what stage they were. If you have those types of investment, what stage was the company at? What did they need to show or prove from a strategy, business strategy, sales, growth, all of that, in order to convince you that they are the right bet, on top of, you know, maybe being women-led and have a strong team?
Well, in fairness, of all the places that I invest the least, it is in consumer. It's a tough climb. I'm advising an intimate apparel company right now, and the lift in terms of the marketing is pretty significant in terms of dollars. But I think a couple things for me in the space. And this what I would say be universal, is the company and is the founder solving a problem? Is there something out there that either it is needs to be, can be better? Is it an old model of doing things and therefore there's a new way of doing things? Has there been a new trend and demand that nothing in the current marketplace is satisfying? So I first go to very basics about what is there really a problem trying to be solved, and then I look at whether or not the company and the product and the team is actually solving it, and then how can that be scaled, and to what degree they have the vision and strategy to actually think about how you scale it, where you're managing all the operational issues in tandem with the brand building. And I think that the companies that I've seen and that I've chosen, I go back to, do I think the founder's investable? Do I think they're coachable? Is the company and strategy being thought of in a way that is actually going to solve the question out there that they think why they think they could be making a difference? And then, do I think that there's an addressable market out there that is what they're doing is going to be competitive enough on that whole journey, because it's going to take a lot of money and quite a bit of time to get there. And you know, are they choosing to do D2C? Are they choosing to do retail? Are they choosing to, you know, is it an online play? And if it's an online play, how is the tech? How's the user experience? What are they doing in terms of distribution and online? How much are they paying for brand marketing, awareness, all those sort of things? So that's sort of where I live. And it's tough. It's really, really tough. The consumer areas that I have gotten involved in, honestly, are more underserved markets, in the sense that they are, you know, diverse consumer segments that don't have the depth to them to the same degree. African American women's makeup, African American women's wigs, things like that, where there's a newfound and perhaps, you know, there's the way to do things differently. Those have been the spaces. And then to Maddie's point, I'm invested in a lactose-free ice cream company and some other spaces like that.
Interesting. If you don't mind, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So, as you know, being in this, I mean, yeah, we are a consumer packaged goods company, but we sell B2B and we sell, you know, retail, and under retail we have different outlets of selling. It's not just a grocery store; it's the camping sites, you know, resorts, other opportunities under with our product and with the potential that our product has. So if you see a product that is innovative, like extremely, not an evolution, but a revolution of a category, how would you assess the round A valuation on, let's say, a couple of $1 million in sales in the first 2 years. I'm trying to figure out that our company is growing really fast. And as we grow fast, we need to accumulate more inventory in order to be able to sell it. And the majority of the working capital goes towards that. So as we grow, we need more capital for inventory. And we're at a point where we need our own facility of manufacturing that we're now looking into. So trying to put an evaluation on how much the company is valued at right now so we can raise money to get all this done. Being really unique, really innovative, really kind of a one-of-a-kind type of product in our category, and with all this potential. Is there a multiple out there that people are looking at? And because we are unique and innovative, is there an extra multiples that we can add to the mix to really, understand the potential of what we're doing, to really get people to understand the potential of what we're doing?
Well, so 2 things. When you're raising an A, the rule of thumb is that you need to have sort of 1 to 2, preferably $1.5 to $3 million in ARR to raise an A. You want to have somewhere between 5 and 6, 7 to raise the B. So those are sort of high level areas for people's consideration. So the idea is that up to $1 million in revenue, you're sort of in the seed stage, and that you probably wanted to be raising. And hopefully you've done not just safe notes and converts, but you've actually had a priced round in the seed so that you've had a mark to market there. You then want to take the post money of your seed stage, and that becomes your sort of baseline for what is the multiple of your ARR. How does that compare with where you were when you raised your seed? Now, valuations today are crazier than they were when I started 3 years ago. They're because the demand is there, and valuations and there's a lot of money sloshing around. So the thing about determining the valuation, one could argue that you want to sort of there are different ways to do it, and you can either say that you want to be at a multiple of ARR today, or what you think that longer term an exit would look like, and therefore back into what a valuation would be on a multiple to earn that where you would have to be from a revenue point of view to where you'd like to be. I also would say that you could take your revenue projections for the next 3 years, do a straight line averaging of them, and that will give you a projection. That will give you what the ARR is over the next 2-3 years, and then do the multiple off of that. In general, you'd like to have your valuation at an A to be somewhat lower, because the goal here at raising an A is to get institutional money behind you, and you want the math to work for their funds so that they can have the upside by getting in at a certain level. And so while everybody thinks that, high valuations is good, it's actually not so good. You'd rather have a sort of fair to medium kind of valuation versus a high one, because then you'll get more interest. And you want, particularly in your consumer-oriented segments, you're gonna need a lot of money, not just for inventory and operating capital, but eventually for marketing and brand building. And so you need institutional capital who are gonna be there to give you the money today, but then through your journey, more so than almost any other, well, close to any other segment. I think drugs and biotech is probably up there as well, but that's sort of where you sit. So, if the one of the other things you should do is in your brain have a valuation, but don't ever give that to a VC. Let them value it for you. And you can, and I mean, success is having multiple term sheets and competing situations. And then you choose the partner, the level, all of those. Have you trafficked through the female VCs? Like, have you seen BBG or Female Founders Fund or Halogen or any of those folks? Because they all invest exclusively in female founders. They all invest at the A level, and they might be that might be a good avenue for you.
Honestly, I haven't. We haven't even raised debt up until now, because we were self-funded and the sales were enough to support the growth. Now we're at a point where we have $500,000 worth of, commitment letter from Lowe's for inventory for 2022, and all of a sudden there is a lot of, and others. So all of a sudden we need that, first of all, line of credit, but then I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be just for that, to stop the bleeding.
The VCs aren't going to give you a line of credit. That's not what they do.
No, right.
They want equity.
I understand that. So I'm thinking, aside from that line of credit, thinking strategically, like you said, the next, 3 years, what is it going to look like, and what the company will really need to get to reach the goals of sales and growth. And this is why I'm on this call, to kind of understand what is the next step.
I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Karthika, I see your hand raised.
Yeah. Hey, hi there. Thank you so much for doing this. This was a great discussion, especially the valuation piece. I joined in a little late, but I'm really appreciative of this, Kristen. My question is, as a digital health founder, one of the things we keep getting is, hey, when is your clinical validation completing, and come to us if you have a customer ready and things like that. But I want to, the way we are approaching this is we're looking at a soft launch even before the clinical validation completes, because we're thinking ourselves of being more of a telehealth company, a digital medicine company than a digital therapeutic. My question here is, how do you respond to these sorts of questions about, market launch, or when someone keeps trying to push things because, you're waiting on another milestone? Is there a good way to do this? Or, any of your thoughts here, Kristen, would be great. I just realized I've not said who I am or what the company does. I'm Kritika Parmeshwaran. I'm a Wharton alum. I am the founder and CEO of Vital Start Health, also part of the Launch Lane cohort currently. And we are building a maternal mental health platform using virtual reality and artificial intelligence. We finished a feasibility study at CHOP, and now we're raising our seed round. And, we're just getting ready for a soft launch. Thanks so much.
So I think that, again, the investor community is not homogenous. And so you want to, angel investors often will come in a little bit earlier, particularly in medical or life sciences. But it's a fine line between being, is it too early or just right, and things like that. But I would, if I were you, so, the more professional investor is going to, and if they run a life sciences venture fund or things like that, they are going to want you to have had a little bit more of a milestone under your belt. But if you've got the IP built, and you, particularly because you're doing, telehealth, if you've got the IP built and you have a pilot, my guess is that you probably would be ready to talk to angel investors. So within a lot of the angel groups, so Wharton would be my first call if I were you, because they have an angel group. The second is Harvard has a very, very active angel group that does a lot in life science and medical devices. We can also I can put you in touch with angels, New York angels who do stuff in this lane. Like you missed my preamble. This is not a place where I have any expertise, so I am useless. But I can introduce people in that space, and they love working with founders. In fact, one of my partners is Philly based, and I'd happily. He does stuff in the more medical diagnostic space, but at the same time he does do, and there's a couple others that, so instead of taking your time, I would suggest that you go and reach out to some of these angel communities that do a lot in your lane and see what, because I think that, that could be very possible.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I'll certainly reach out and ping you on this as well. Thanks so much.
I see my friend Carolyn Horner, who's the CEO of a terrific company called Gen Z, is on the phone too. Hi.
Hi, Kristen. I thought I would hop on in. I got excited when I saw your name on Eventbrite. So it's nice to see you.
You too. You too.
Kristen, I'm curious, as a private investor, what does your investment timeline look like compared to a larger firm? Could founders, when working with a private investor like yourself, expect the process to move more quickly, or do things take a little more time?
Well, I'm gonna have to speak out of both sides of my mouth. I will warn everyone, working with angel groups involves a little bit of patience because they tend to overturn every stone, they dot every I, and at the end of the day, they're not compensated for this work in this sort of traditional sense. So they do tend to take a little long. And that honestly is one of my challenges with looking at deals through these angel groups, because I am a person who wants to do things very, very quickly. So to answer your question, if I'm doing a deal that is outside of the angel network, I move quickly. And I do things in weeks, sometimes days, but pretty much weeks. And I have a lot of people, and I work with several other people where we trade deals and do all this sort of stuff. And then in the angel world, one of the areas of continuous improvement is actually trying to bring pace to those teams and do it, because it's not interesting for the entrepreneur, it's not interesting for everybody to not arrive at a conclusion very quickly. The papering of things also can take a little while. New York Angels and some of these other angel groups have very, very good documentation, but sometimes we're brought into a round where we're not leading. If we're leading a deal, then we can set the timetable, everything, and that's terrific. But if we're not leading a deal, we're still somewhat beholden to the founder finding that lead. And then that will take whatever time it's going to take as well. I do tend to, I'm a fairly unique angel in that I participate in follow-ons. Not in everyone, but I do participate in follow-ons. So in several of my companies, I've invested at the seed, as well as a bridge, as well as an A. And so, because I'm a former bond investor. I don't want to dilute. I don't want to be diluted. So I pop up to not be diluted if I have an opinion of how much of a company I want to own, and provided they've gone through all of the stages I invest. And so those deals, which tend to be exercising either pro rata or things, I move extremely quickly.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I see Maddie has her hand up.
Yeah,
She's right in the center. She's got Alice on my Brady Bunch screen. So I'm dating myself, but yeah.
Thank you, thank you. One quick one. I mean, I saw info about the process and whatnot from you guys, starting with sort of like the selection screening and whatnot, and having that minimum interest mark. I guess curious about what that funnel typically looks like and what staging tends to skew towards within the New York Angel group. I know you mentioned that in your family office in particular, it tends to be in the seed realm. And then my other question was, I liked when you said you can pick apart a model or a personality. I think it's been interesting to hear so much content about female founders, especially, right? And tending to project more of what's plausible rather than possible, and wondering what kinds of advice you have in terms of, I don't know, things you've seen that maybe are tips for how that personality has come through for you in a way that's been particularly compelling.
So New York Angels, I'm on the screening committee for New York Angels. So I look at, basically there's a several process. So you apply into New York Angels on GUST. Those applications then get what we call rate and reviewed, which basically are looked at by all the members. If there's enough support of a deal based on that application, that then, and basically you have enough angels that say, hey, I'd be interested in learning more or whatever. That then goes to the screening committee. There are 4 of us. We look at all the deals. We tend to look at, so basically the top of the funnel every month is about 100 companies. Then that typically gets down to about 50 companies. Then of that 50, 30 are presented to the screening committee, and the delta between that 30 and 50 tends to be because the applications aren't quite as polished or as complete as they need to be. So it's, I hate to say it, but it's more administrative that people get bounced out than or just sloppiness, not because of a quality of proposal. I mean of what the company's doing. We do make a effort to take a second look with diverse and female founded founders. Then of the 20, the 4 of us look at every single company very deeply, and we're all scholastic. We sign it an A through a typically C minus. And we narrow it down to 10. Now, when we were meeting in person, we used to do 14 companies, but since COVID, we only do 10. So eventually we'll get back to doing 14, which will take everything up, by 30%. Those companies tend to be, most of them are sort of pre-seed seed, very little in the A or later rounds. If it's pre-seed, they tend to be sort of convertible notes. New York Angels has an aversion to safes that I don't necessarily agree with, but it exists, so I just throw that out there. And then at the seed stage, they're typically priced deals. They are across the spectrum of industry segments. I mean, everything. Sometimes we have ones where there's a lot of fintech. Sometimes we have a lot of medical and life sciences. Other times we have a lot of just consumer SaaS enabled, you name it. I mean, it's all over the place. Then as a sort of Shark Tank, founders come for 10 minutes, they give a pitch. We all again vote who'd like to learn more, who likes what they heard. Then those goes to discovery session, which is an hour and a half. 2 angels agree to lead the deal. From discovery, if there's more to be learned, we then take it to due diligence. If there's enough interest, we then consider whether or not we would want to lead the deal, and we set the terms. And then so on and so on. So that, and then if you're doing our angels that in deals that have had angel support, typically if you're doing follow-ons, New York Angels is very, very, very firm about wanting investor rights. So there's always we assume going to be pro rata. So by definition, the follow-on will have another set of presentations to potentially raise more money, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to answer your second question, for women, you know, I don't know how to actually frame it. It's kind of like you know it when you see it kind of thing. But I like women in general, and I used to tell this to the young analysts who worked for me at BlackRock, to founders today. Women are too conservative. We are too risk averse. And while that makes a, you know, it's interesting, if you look at female founded companies, the returns of female founded companies are right on the mark. Like, they haven't been inflated. Women are delivering exactly what they promised. But the problem is that, no offense to you men, you inflate things. And so the male counterparts puff everything up a little bit more, so the women don't seem to be as ambitious, or they don't appear to be as ambitious. So you want, I would argue, my founders, I'm constantly telling them that they need to take a little more risk, invest a little bit more to be able to take that to the next level. And that particularly as you're going through the ABCs of venture raising, you're going to have to show, I mean, for lack of a better word, quite a lot of chutzpah, because that is, they are used to that, and that is what they are expecting. And so while I think women are, in many respects, my investment in women is greater value and less risky, but I would say to go the long haul, I do encourage them to step out of a comfort zone in a way that they typically don't naturally. And by the way, I used to tell this to my analysts at BlackRock. I'm like, you know, you didn't ask me for more money. And they're like, what? I'm like, you didn't ask me for more money. Everybody asked for more money. You should be asking for more money. And so it is a social thing that we are adjusting to, and why part of the reason I'm involved in doing what I do is to hopefully, you know, be impactful.
All right, Kristen, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Another one from Kurthika here. She says, do angels have to be wary of clauses regarding competitive investment? She's working through this with a VC firm, and is it something to watch out for with angels as well?
So I will tell you that New York Angels is very, very careful, and almost, you know, like considers there to be a real line in the sand about in letting the founders know whether or not there is competitive construct in the space, whether it's because they themselves have supported a deal or not. I recently was in a gaming situation where I was looking at a company and we alerted the founder that we were looking at this other company. Now, they were not direct competitors, but they were close enough cousins that it was appropriate to elevate it to everybody's attention that we were looking at these two companies. And we were further along with one than the other. And the one we were further along with ultimately said, you know, I'm not so comfortable. So we stopped looking at that second company until we had arrived at a conclusion with the first one. And so I think that again, and I don't know if everybody operates the same way, but I'm of the opinion that you have to be transparent. We're not signing NDAs here. We're on the honor system. So if you are involved in any way in anything that hints or smells that could be conflicting, then that is appropriate to raise that.
All right, and then we have a question here from Elizabeth. She says, do you have any resources for early stage, idea stage and up startups, or what about social enterprises?
Can you define what you mean by social enterprises? Oh, more social mission. Well, you know, it's funny. So most things these days that there's certainly, you know, ESG is everywhere. It's here to stay. I'm invested in several companies that are B Corps that by definition, their corporate structure has a social orientation to it. I don't think you need to worry about, I don't think you need to find anyone that looks at it exclusively, because I think it's everywhere. So for early stage, pre-seed, very early stuff, some of the best resources out there are some of the incubators. So whether that be Techstars or ERA or things like that, 500 startups on the West Coast is amazing. The only pre-seed fund I'm involved in is a company called Hustle Fund, and they invest in ideas. They'll throw a $25,000 check at an idea. They're a pretty dynamic group, and they have a very interesting process. And so if you are not familiar with Hustle Fund, one of the GPs is a woman named Elizabeth Yin. She was one of the founders of 500 Startups. They are really, really, really dynamic in that space. And so that would be one thing. I would say, again, the sort of social orientation is all, it's very, very in vogue right now, and I wouldn't necessarily look at it. Another place that does incubating is Newark Venture Partners. They have a studio, like Newark, New Jersey, and Allison Williams runs that, and that is also, I think, they're pretty smart about how they do things. They're heavy tech focused, so I would tell you.
Okay, I had a question from Martina come in. She said, how does New York Angels define pre-seed versus seed stage companies?
Revenue. So you have to have a sort of, you actually have to be achieving an ARR, that would be the level, that you have passed sort of proof of concept, by definition being revenue. Pre-seed is where you are typically still piloting, you're about to do a beta test, you are in early, you know, just very early stages. Too early to be doing the pre-seed versus seed also tends to do with how you're raising money. Like I said, pre-seed tends to be on convertible notes with caps on them or safes. They don't tend to be priced round because you don't have anything to price off of. And so that's typically how we sort of look at it.
All right, thank you. Looks like we have just a few minutes left here with Kristen. If you have any questions, get them in now. Another Martina question. What is the typical check for seed? Check size, yes.
At New York Angels, I would say the average is $25,000 a member. And so again, it's a syndicate. So we've had deals where we've invested north of $1 million. We've had deals where we've invested, you know, I'm in a deal with just like 4 or 5 other angels, and we've put 150,000 in. So again, it's all about the number of angels that are interested, but on average, the check size is 25. If people are really excited about the opportunity, or it's a later stage. I will say that if it's a sort of A or a B, and we very rarely do we do Bs. I mean, almost never. If it's an A stage, people may invest a little bit more there because some of the risk has been taken out of the picture. but for the most part, I think for seed, it's pretty fair to say it's a $25,000 per angel check, and the goal is to get as many angels as you can.
And lastly, from Martina, do you look at companies outside of New York? Sorry.
Oh, I would love to look at, I feel like I have too much exposure to New York. In fact, I feel like it's all Brooklyn. But yes, I look at companies, for the most part, I look at companies US wide. I have a company in Bentonville, Arkansas. I have companies on the West Coast. I have companies, yeah. So I look at companies everywhere. I have not done any non-US companies yet. I think for legal purposes being, if I do invest in non-US companies, it's through a fund because it's just managing the sort of incorporation issues and things like that. It's just a little messier.
All right. Karthika asked, what is the best way to reach you, Kristen?
Email.
No.
Jake has my email.
Yeah.
So email is the best way to get me.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be doing a follow-up email in a couple of hours after this call. So I'll be sure to share Kristen's contact info with you all. Cool. All right.
And if you have companies and you do think we have yet, so we don't do any screening for New York Angels in August, but we will be taking applications now for the September screening. And I recommend getting them in like soon because the rate and review process will start second half of August. Our September screening is in fact before Labor Day. It's September 1st. So all of that has to happen. If not, we tend to do screenings the first Wednesday of every month. So if you do have a company and you are interested in seeing New York Angels, I encourage you to submit an application and make sure you put somewhere that you're involved here with the Science Center, because Liz Lindsay, who's our executive director, is how I arrived here in the first place. So she'll take note of that. So I hopefully we'll see some of you. We still don't know if we're doing in person yet. I have a feeling it'll be a sort of maybe October, November, but we're hopeful.
Excellent. All right. Well, that is our time. So Kristen, just want to thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. And thank you all for joining the call. This was a great discussion, and we look forward to seeing you at the next session next month. So stay tuned for that and enjoy the rest of your days. Have a good one.